Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down Welcome to Derry. Having a breakdown myself after that episode. Now, the penultimate entry is now here, and there's a lot they reveal as we head to the finale next week. This is one of the best hours of TV I think HBO has put out in a long time, and yeah, I'm dying to talk about it. We have Easter eggs, dances, deaths, deadlights, dick, and danger. There's lots of big changes to the book as well that are going to make this a blast to go through, and yeah, just let's skip the long intro, get right into it.
I am Pennywise, your dancing daddy.
Now we begin in the year of 1908, which builds off the back of episode 3. Beyond being the year that it took its favourite form in Pennywise, we also know this is the year of the Kitchener Ironworks explosion. This Easter egg hunt ended in disaster when some of the machines overloaded and exploded. The factory detonated and killed several people, and in the end 88 children were killed. Pennywise's cart was seen at the site, and this episode cleared things up. Initially I did think it was Bob Gray at this location, but now we know Pennywise had taken his identity at this point. We join the carnival and watch as a snake is dangled in front of a woman. From the wide shot of it watching later on, we can see this is from a performer called Jungle Joe. Snakes in stories have a lot of symbolism, with it all going back to the Bible. A snake entered paradise and disrupted it, with Pennywise being the quote-unquote devil that destroys the relationship between Ingrid and her father. We then pull out and can see a stock of cotton candy, which is what Pennywise used to tempt Georgie with in the book. We then get a much wider establishing shot. If you look at the back of the stage, then you can see Pennywise's red card attached to it. This also reveals the circus is in the middle of a giant field surrounded by trees. I believe that this is where we end the episode, with this being the location the dig site goes down later at. So it's a nice full circle moment. Kids then rush towards the stage and we get a booth for him with a little Pennywise mascot on it. Going to the stage itself, we see the carnival ringleader who returns from episode 3. It clearly took inspiration from this guy's announcements, as there's a music box with a similar introduction in chapter 1.
Step right up, Beverly. Step right up. You'll laugh. You'll cry. You'll cheer. You'll down. Introducing Pennywise, the dancing clown.
We also have the Pennywise logo at the top of the stage that's seen on several parts of the cart. On the left and right of the stage, there's also interesting carvings in the pillar. They look like Swedish Viking carvings, and this could be a nod to the book, in that Mrs. Kersh actually said how her father came from Sweden. Pennywise then pops out a door and we see he's got a bit of a dodgy eye, which it of course adopted. Andy Muschietti wanted to do this digitally, but Skarsgård revealed he could do it for real. We then watch as he performs his act, and it kind of gives an insight into the real Bob Gray's life. Gray's wife was a clown who went under the moniker Periwinkle, but she sadly passed away. This has clearly haunted him, and we see he's not as happy off stage as he appears to be on. The episode centers heavily around the death of a loved one and how this can completely destroy you. Death lingers throughout, and whether it's this, Rich, which I'm never getting over, the Kershes, it all kind of plays into it. I did wonder if there was any symbolism to the beaver kind of being the antagonist in this play as well. It has yellow eyes just like Pennywise and pops up from the ground just like the creature, but that might be a reach. Ultimately, Pennywise and the beaver become friends, which is kind of what Kersh tries to do with it. And after the hug, it almost kind of works. The beaver could also be a nod to the town's logging history, as beavers were used to represent the town in chapter 2.
Never been a fan of the beaver, but look at this hat.
But yeah, the whole play is really sad, and just seeing the paintings of Periwinkle and Grey together kind of messed me up. I think this is his wife's old costume that he dances with, and it comes alive like a ghost, which kind of plays in the themes of the show and how characters can come back to life in some form. But yeah, really sad. Periwinkle's costume was black and white, which reminded me of the Terrifier. Art was clearly inspired by Pennywise, and his design was even based off old clowns that inspired the creature. Art had his own sidekick, the little pale girl as well, and Ingrid later gets hit with the deadlights but survives, so I do wonder if she's gonna go full on pale girl. We then cut to a goat, and Andy Muschietti there, absolute goat for making this episode. The Flash is forgiven. The curtains then open up and we catch Pennywise sipping a swig from his flask before it's taken off stage. The sad clown paradox, to give it its technical term, that's an archetype that's been laced throughout fiction, and it applies here really well. Made famous by the joke about Pagliacci, this plays in the idea that a performer isn't able to experience the joy they give to others. And yet, from what we see of Gray, he's a bit of a wreck when he's not with his daughter. And even then, I do wonder if he's just putting on an act for her. The sobbing stuff is something we've seen in the movies, and Pennywise did this sort of thing in Chapter 2 when Rich escaped the Paul Bunyan statue. Seeing the kids' reaction here though shows why Pennywise picked this as his favourite form. They absolutely love it, and rather than having to chase kids like we saw with the Skeleton Man, the kids now come to it. Realising that there's other ways to catch them, it then ended up adopting this form. There might be a continuity error here though. Ben found a drawing of Derry's founding which featured Pennywise looking menacing. So it did clearly have a look like this earlier. As we mentioned in lots of our breakdowns though, this has been a problem with prequels, as writers and directors tried to retroactively change things or add lore. You can see how the kids are just mesmerised by the act though, and they love how the clown makes them laugh. This love even endears Kersh after 60 years, and she's willing to do the dumbest thing possible if there's even the chance she could recapture her childhood. This is its greatest trick as well. In between cycles, we have seen how the town kind of rests on its laurels and slumps into comfort. Even the tribe of Maturin was like, oh whatever mate, cycles ending soon, not been too bad. However, the idea of Pennywise is kept alive by people like Kersh and later Henry Bowers. These become its minions in many ways. Pennywise always needs a human character as its servants, much like the typical vampire relationship. Which is very fitting as Henry Bowers basically does the clown's work, and in the episode his grandfather wears a Dracula mask. Kersh will later become one of its forms as well, and she's probably the most tragic character in the entire story now due to what we know. Like Lilly, it uses her dead father to manipulate her, but both go in opposite directions. This is also where the grooming metaphor really comes into effect. I've always seen Pennywise as being based off the kind of killers who lure kids in with promises of stuff like candies and puppies, that sort of thing. It's drilled into our heads as kids not to trust them, and even now with my kids, I'm like, once a week I'll say, don't believe that strangers who say they have puppies and sweets, don't believe them. Now because of this, at the time of the book's release, Pennywise was compared to John Wayne Gacy, who used to perform as a clown. He'd lure young boys back to his house and show them his magical handcuffs. He'd put them on and lock them, and then show them how to escape through using a quote-unquote trick. He'd then get the kids to try them on themselves, and they'd quickly realise they couldn't get them off. Gacy would then have them at his mercy. Now though King was writing it at the time of the crimes and didn't actually know who Gacy was, people obviously drew similarities. Since then, I think the tie's been present throughout the multiple incarnations we've had. The 1990s miniseries, for example, that definitely has elements of Curry's Pennywise that are clearly based on Gacy. I think since the book's publication as well, other creators have kind of drifted towards more real-world metaphors, and the miniseries was full of stuff like Eddie getting attacked in the locker room. Locker room stories like this with boys have often been where it's revealed that abuse has gone down and kids have been groomed by people in the school and stuff. So yeah, it's a dark way to take the video, but I think it just highlights how seemingly innocent things like this have been taken and twisted by those who wish to do harm, and are as evil as Pennywise. We then see Pennywise dancing in a style that it would later take and perform in the sewers. This was inside its car to Bev just as she was trying to make a run for it. It was really unnerving and just like kind of like a what the hell's going on moment. Which this isn't the place to be dancing, mate. Amongst the performances, we have some other Easter eggs, including the red balloons dropping down. Last week we saw in the photo of Grey how the giant forehead was actually an additional headpiece. The creature Pennywise doesn't need that though, so kind of just morphs into the same form. But I love how it just kind of explains why the character's forehead's so big. The kids then rush to the stage, which sets up a lot of things. The kids end up rushing Pennywise and defeating him in the end, with them basically chasing him away for 27 years. However, we also see it watching over. We will be watching over the rest of the episode in just a moment, but firstly, a quick word from our sponsors. This video is sponsored by Storyblocks. Okay, so if you're a content creator, editor, or filmmaker, then Storyblocks is absolutely perfect for you. Storyblocks has everything you'll ever need all in one place for a subscription cost that will up your budget while saving you time and money. Storyblocks has everything you need from 4K and HD videos to templates, music, sound effects, images, and more. It's an unlimited source of content with no hidden or extra fees. Plus, it's all created by real artists to add some authenticity to your videos. For example, we do a lot of James Bond stuff at the channel, and I'm constantly having to travel to places to get footage with cars. However, now if I want something, I just type in James Bond and instantly have access to tons and tons of templates and footage. On average, Storyblocks saves members about 3.5 hours a week, and they have templates for After Effects, Premiere Pro, Apple Motion, and DaVinci Resolve. You can even access Storyblocks directly in Premiere Pro and After Effects with their Creative Cloud plugin. Anything you download is 100% royalty free, and you can even add your YouTube channel ID to your Storyblocks account to whitelist it against copyright claims. This is an absolute game changer when it comes to making content. To get started with unlimited stock media account downloads at one set price, head to storyblocks.com/heavy spoilers or click the link in the description. That's storyblocks.com/heavy spoilers to get started now. Thank you. We then cut to Periwinkle applying her makeup in costume. It's a great way to mirror Kersh getting ready last week, along with the scene that we saw in chapter 2. After Bev came face to face with Kersh, she then ran into a vision of Grey. He was getting ready just like this, and we even get a similar moment with paint around his face. There it was warning Bev that she hadn't changed anything and that she was doomed. Here though, it's just a nice father-daughter moment. I've expected him to shout at her for wearing her mother's outfit, but he's very pleased that Ingrid is taking up the family business. Periwinkle then tells her father that he should hear how the kids talk about him, and he says, well, at least that's something. His daughter is clearly what brings him light, and he wants to perform with her as the first father and daughter act, even giving her the moniker of her mother. Grey talks about how he misses the circus, the roars, and then says,
My act will be different. Something no one's ever seen before.
Unfortunately, this ends up proving correct, and it adopts his act to make children roar in terror. Yay! Now, we see him on the night smoking his cigarettes, and this is something we also saw in his hand in the photo in the attic. He's swigging his flask and getting red makeup on his handkerchief, which neatly plays into the blood reveal of his death. We can also spot the initials RG at the bottom. This stands for Robert Grey, and it's something King took from child killer and cannibal Albert Fish. A boy then approaches from the woods, and I love how Pennywise is like, nah mate, I'm not helping you find your parents, sod off. I feel like this guy wouldn't even hit the thumbs up. Will you hit it?
No. Can't you see I'm busy?
I love the way the kids' eyes are shot though, so they've got those two reflective parts akin to the shiny ones that George saw in the basement in chapter 1. Upon hearing screams from the forest, Grey then decides to go and help. I did wonder at first if this was one of the creature's victims, as Pennywise can be in several places at once. However, nobody is found, and thus it's probably just making the sound effects. Ingrid then goes looking for her dad, and we see a sign for the Santini's Brothers Carnival. The 7 Santini brothers moving operations have been mentioned in King's work before, but I can't really find any Easter eggs beyond the mention there. And they aren't mentioned in it. But yeah, if you know, that's what the comments are here for. Anyway, Grey's been found dead, and from what the group discovered, they think that it was wolves. They talk about how they roam around the area, but knowing that, I do think it's probably always been Pennywise. I love the transition here as we cut to the credits as well, and the little iris fade out just keeps things in line with the times, giving it an old movie feel. Now it's from this point that we cut to the intro, and it's here we hear the Smile in a Ribbon song that I've had on repeat for 6 weeks at this point. Kill me! As we discussed last week, there's a drone in the background that slowly gets earlier and earlier in the song. It was completely absent in episode 2, but since then it's just kind of drifted in closer and closer. Feel like it represents Pennywise, how he's under the surface, in the background, and ramping up to the impending doom that's now coming for Derry. And it's such a great touch. Now from here, we jump back to the Blackspot. Continuing from last week, we see Bowers wearing a Dracula mask. This is along with a werewolf and also a Frankenstein one. Sorry, Frankenstein's monster, you cheeky bad boy. This is a little nod to King and the book. As a kid, King was terrified by the Universal Monster movies, and their roster are probably what pushed him towards writing horror. He had an idea that they could all be costumes and masks that could all technically be worn by the same entity. So it was created to feast on the fear of kids by appearing as what they feared the most. In the book, Frankenstein's monsters there, Richie's attacked by a werewolf, and a Dracula from Salem's Lot appears as well. So all really nice Easter eggs that kind of ties back to that, and I know it's a Dracula, I'm very in my Weekly Planet mode there. There's also a skeleton, a Native American, and a clown mask, which you could apply to what happens in the Blackspot. We have skeletons because people die, a Native American, and also a clown. Now in the book, the Blackspot fire was told to us by Mike's father Will while he was on his deathbed dying of cancer. Will had kind of touched upon the tale throughout Mike's life, but he'd never out and out told him. In the book, they have the kids' stuff go down, and then Mike remained in the town. While the others forget, Mike stays behind and investigates Derry, which is broken up into sections known as interludes. The book is kind of a chore at points, I'm not gonna lie mate, like there's a 4-hour-long chapter on the audiobook that's just kind of talking about Stan's business. And that's chapter 3. And I shit you not, They even talk about how his wife was reading a book by Bill that she ended up quitting around chapter 3. And Bill is based on Stephen King. And I was reading it like, fucking hell, I hate this shit. In the context of the show, I have seen a theory that next week it'll be revealed that we're actually seeing Mike hearing these stories and that Leroy's telling them to his grandson on his deathbed. Leroy just kind of disappears out the story in chapter 1 and we never see the character again. So I think this would be a great way to fill in what happened to the character and actually give us a goodbye to someone who's quite important in the story. We could get all the seasons told to Mike as Leroy dies, with him recounting the events just like the book. Will died in the fire as an adult, so yeah, he didn't really have a deathbed, but I think having Leroy do it would be such a cool way to reframe the entire season, and then it would act as the perfect segue into the films. But yeah, on his deathbed, Will tells his son and how Pennywise was the one behind it. He'd riled up the town into a frenzy, and they descended on the Blackspot wearing KKK robes. I've always thought that though Pennywise is the bad guy, that he often just enhances how people are, and the evil within them. Adults in the town look the other way when they see a kid getting bullied, and claims of abuse just fall on deaf ears, which is something that often happens in real life. Pennywise just enhances the evil within someone, and then it takes advantage. Whenever there's evil though, he's always there in the mix and waiting to strike. And this was the kind of event that highlighted that. The Blackspot was a place where white and black people in Derry could get along, but the fire sent that all burning down, literally. In the lead up to it, Will had been ordered to do torturous work at the base by a racist soldier called Sergeant Wilson. In the blistering heat, he made him dig a hole and then fill it in and then dig it up and then fill it in and dig it up and fill it in ad nauseum in the blistering sun. Will kept at it though and didn't stop because he didn't want Wilson to win. But it just kind of played in the idea that the higher ups viewed Will purely because of his race. That night, Will talked about the ban and how the hoods then showed up. He said that people in the robes appeared like ghosts, but that he saw some real ghosts as well walking amongst the crowd. They rushed in with torches, and apparently a pilot light had been left on, which then started the fire. The doors were then locked, and the horror began. There was maybe 40 or 50 people out there, some of them crying, some of them puking, some of them screaming, some of them doing all three things at once it seemed like. Others were laying on the grass, fainted, dead away with the smoke. The door was shut, and we heard people screaming on the other side, screaming to let them out. Out for the love of Jesus, they were burning up. This was so bad that people were crushed against the doors they were trying to break out, and many that did wished that they hadn't. In the night, a bird came down and grabbed them before taking them off in the darkness to feast. Will said the bird didn't fly though, and instead it just floated. Will waited until his deathbed to finally tell the truth because he knew no one would believe him. And I do feel like, for as horrible as this event is, that no one's going to mention the clown. This was also something discussed in another interlude, which opens up chapter 2. That is the murder of Adrian Mellon, which fittingly opens chapter 2 as well. All the witnesses on the day, they swore they saw a clown, but the police knew it would just destroy the court case, so all mention of it was kept out the records, which I think will likely happen here as well. The entire scene is horrifying, and it's one of those ones that you read and you think like, yeah, that's very bad, but they'll never be able to adapt it as good as it is here. And yeah, when they started doing like the vampire masks and stuff and the werewolf, I was like, yeah, it's not going to be as good as the book or as horrifying. Because yeah, you have the KKK show up and it's just highlighting the evil that exists within people. In the end though, finally seeing episode 7, for as good as I think the book is, Muschietti just takes things to the next level and crafts one of the best scenes I think I've ever seen in a TV show. It begins with a really tense standoff between the masks and patrons, and there's also clear undercurrents of racism throughout the whole thing. So yeah, though they're not wearing robes, they're not exactly skipping out on it. One of the gunmen even allows Norma Price to go free at the start, and it shows how they only care about certain kinds of kids. Dick then comes out swinging his dick and saying they're the army, and Hank even tries to hand himself over. The GIs then pull their guns, and the ones behind the masks are clearly cowards, beyond doing the obvious thing of like hiding behind a mask. They then back off and say they're leaving before locking the doors and attacking from the outside. It also feels like Muschietti is steering things towards the idea of vigilantism that we saw in the Bradley Gang massacre. That happened after all the town basically shot up a gang in the street. They were all armed and ready to dish out some vigilante justice. Which I do feel like if this story gets passed down the line, this is what they're going to kind of paint it out as being. The Welcome to Derry podcast last week actually had a great quote that I think applies really well to this episode. They said that in Derry, the past isn't the past because there is no past because everything is on a loop and it happens in a cycle. They also touched upon how the true horror is not what people see in the dark, but what people choose to see in the light. This entire event is whitewashed, and people just flat out refuse to acknowledge what really went down that day. Even the accounts by Will in the book are not certain if the Legion of White Decency intended to set the fire or if it was just a big accident. He said it may have just happened when they were lighting their torches. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, Will, don't agree. But yeah, Hiding Hank wasn't in the book at all, and hell, neither was Hank really. He gets a mention when they're talking about Veronica Grogan, but the hunt for him wasn't driving them into burning down the Blackspot. Instead, again, it definitely feels like it just mirrors a Bradley Gang massacre, and that is apparently coming in season 2, so very excited to see how it kind of mirrors this moment. But yeah, the people who carried that out aren't viewed as criminals, they're viewed as doing vigilante justice and being heroes, and I do wonder if because of Hank being seen as a child killer, if all the people involved in this, if they're just going to be seen like, oh well, they weren't criminals, they were bringing the killer to justice. Now, in the book, we do learn of the aftermath of this event and learn there was a great wave of shame that washed over the town. Those involved in the attack ditched the Legion of White Decency and people came together to try and help the survivors. We hear Shaw touch upon this later and how in the aftermath of an attack, people often go in the opposite direction towards order. The book tells us medical fees were either waived or paid for by donors, and Will said it felt like a turning point in the town. Reminded him there were good people in Derry, and as we know, this was around when Pennywise hibernated. So the town had kind of gone to its lowest point, and now the good was starting to emerge. It's just a shame events like this had to happen for people to basically help out others and hit the subscribe. I think it's really clever though to just show how evil can often be generational, and Bowers' lineage is just the absolute worst. It was always in Henry's DNA to be used by the clown and be an instrument of evil, which we see with Chief Bowers here. But yeah, the attack begins right after they leave, and I feel it's even scarier than anything that we've seen Pennywise do. Ironically, they kill more people than they suspect Hank of doing, and it's far bloodier than the Capitol Cinema massacre. The door is barred up just like in the book, and we also see Rich look out the window and see highlights lighting it up, which again is another section that's in the text. Filmed in Awana, you just don't get a break from the action and how intense the attack is. Nothing lets up, and not only does the fire rage, but we also have people outside shooting in. Those that make it out are gunned down, and it's clear they don't care about getting Hank at all. This is just a slaughterhouse. It's kind of the opposite way that sinners go, and you can feel the fire leaping off the screen. Throughout, Rich acts as a knight, and he puts out the fire on Marge's arm before doing something that messed me up. And I'll never forget you, Rich. This night conversation calls back to last week when they talked about how Rich is a knight and Marge is a pirate. In this, Dick also witnesses a lot of stranger things. This begins with a Civil War soldier, and there's some ghosts later who tie into the story. This includes a headless boy who's part of Pennywise's entourage. This is a nod to the kitchen ironworks, and one of the kids had their heads blown off in the explosion. This was later found in a tree, and it's what Ben saw a photo of in the library. He then went down into the basement and was chased after by this headless boy. Dick then makes a dash for it to try and escape, and how he knows how to do this is touched upon in the book. There it says, due to Dick's psychic abilities, that he's able to sense a way out. There he leads Will out of the fire, and he can sense the right way to go. Here though, we kind of see how apathetic he is to others, as he's willing to just ditch them and save his own skin. It's only upon hearing Ronnie ask where her dad is that he looks up and notices the war chief. She's a representation of the opposite to Pennywise, and she stood up to him in the past. This is even subtly shown to us in the war paint. The red covers the top half of her head, and come the end of the episode, we see Pennywise is red from the other half down. The war chief's also wearing the bear head that we saw in the episode 4 flashback. The soldier ignored him, and so did the chief until Dick called out to her for help. Last week he said,
No. Long as I don't regard them, they don't even notice I'm here.
So it's a big deal that he decided to reach out to the spirits for help. Also like how her eyes go from a white glazed over dead look to back to normal once she acknowledges Dick is talking to her. Now speaking of Pennywise, we focus on a soul woman seeking cover in the blaze, and then the clown comes waltzing out of it. Offering to take his hand, this is a subtle callback to Kersh last week. There she offered her hand to Mabel at Juniper Hill before leading her to her death, and that's exactly what Pennywise does here as well, basically highlighting the creature's evolution and how much things have changed from since it first encountered humans. There it used to just run out as a creature and try and eat them, but now it's trying different approaches, and holding out its hand while still being a predator perfectly builds off some of the most manipulative things in humans. This is what Kersh weaponized last week in order to get the kids' trust. She also tried it on Lilly, and it's the same thing Pennywise has started doing a lot, as its victims trusting it makes them easier to grab. We then cut to Ronnie, and I love how as she scrambles around we can see Pennywise munching away in the background. Guy has got face on his face, and Skarsgård just goes completely next level with it. That bit where he's talking to Dick and he's like, they can see you. Just amazing performance. And yeah, watching him go from Nosferatu to stuff like this, he just disappears in the role. And I think he's such an incredible actor. He's just cackling madly amongst the blaze, surrounded by the dead in his world, and then we get a scene that I think is even more evil than anything going on inside. Bowers just standing outside smugly looking at his work. I think I found that one of the most chilling things in the entire series. You can hear the screams coming from inside, and yeah, just horrifying.
He's right. They're cooked.
It was also at this moment that the guy invented the 2025 slang of saying someone's cooked. However, we see Phil's dad is clearly affected by it, considering he was someone who was hit with the Derry curse and tried to kill Hank in episode 5. This is very, very telling. It shows Pennywise's influence is starting to slip, and how even those who were willing to murder aren't happy with the people they've become. And I think this was really important to highlight. When the cycle ends, the grip starts to fall, and this can be seen in the father here. Cutting back inside, we then lead into what's one of the most devastating things I think I've ever watched in my life. Dick leads Hank, Ronnie and Will out, and we see Rich carrying Marge. The roof then collapses. What's a nice bit of continuity, I'll say, amongst all this, we later get a view of the Blackspot and can see this hole. Rich then spots a Coca-Cola fridge and he puts Marge inside of it. Guessing Coca-Cola sponsored this season because they've got like that big advert in Main Street, and then everyone was drinking it in the army tent earlier in the series. In a scene that clearly mimics the end of Titanic, we then see these two star-crossed lovers unfortunately have their future robbed from them. Telling her to get in, Rich plays up there's enough room for both. However, upon climbing in, she realizes the truth and he stands there accepting his fate. He just takes one last look of her and then slams the lid and gets on top and just holds her there until the fire passes. He recounts his first week of school and also the first time he saw Marge. It was love at first sight, and Rich talks about how he stared at her. She said, take a picture, it'll last longer, and Rich said he had a staircase where after this, or l'esprit d'escalier. That's basically when you think about all the stuff he should have said after the event as you're kind of going down the staircase on the way out. Rich says he thought about what he could have said back then and how he would have said,
I wish I could.
It's absolutely devastating, and there was a lot of dust in the room during this moment. Marge and Rich then tell each other they love each other, and even now I'm like, now I'm even like after watching it, I'm like, well, there must be a way that Rich is still alive somehow. Sadly though, this sacrifice is needed, and it shows the kind of friendship and bonds that are needed to defeat the creature. It's about putting your friends first, and this is ultimately how the Losers Club win. Now we are of course heading towards the finale next week, and we know that season 2 is going back in time, so we're not really going to see any of this group again. For the fact that Pennywise still lives, we know all the stuff that happens with the Losers Club, and part of me thinks that everyone minus Will is unfortunately going to die. The original ritual of Chud failed, and so will this one. Will is the only one who canonically makes it out, and this is so that Mike can exist. Knowing for a fact that they've also killed off Rich, it just makes me head towards that finale thinking no one is safe. Because even now I'm like coping, like, oh well, Rich, there might be a way there could be magic they can bring him back. Even when like they focus on his body, I'm like, no, he might still be alive in there. But yeah, knowing all this, it did actually make me recontextualize some stuff, especially involving the Hanlon farm, and I do have a theory time. Whoa, theory time, little lights, whoa. We all theory time, yeah. Okay, so theory time is, what if Will and Leroy end up taking on this farm to keep watch over Pennywise? Kinda like how Mike stays in Derry to keep an eye on it. Potentially they might even build a pillar below the farm, keep an eye over the whole thing, and basically stop the evil from getting out into the world. The farm site and how we see it in chapter 1 does kinda look like the area that we see them digging at the end. That might be a reach, it might not, but I do feel like Will and Leroy are aware of the creature, they take on that responsibility, It then comes back, kills Will in the fire, and then from that point, Leroy's just fully jaded. Might not happen, just think it's interesting to talk about, and that's the time of Deadlight's bass drop theory time.
I love it every time. Make love to me.
Although we don't get a giant bird swooping down to kill the people who start the blaze, we do get a scene with Mr. Kersh. Failing to start his car, it's clear his wife's messed with the engine. Well, to me at least anyway, might have just been a happy accident. Ingrid then emerges from the trees in full periwinkle getup. Her husband just kinda thinks it's ridiculous, but this is her true face.
This is me, Stanley. This is who I really am.
Stanley says he'll beat her black and blue if she doesn't take the makeup off, and this kind of goes into why she psychologically is so desperate to meet back up with her father. Stan has abused her likely for years and years, and she longs for the man in her life that treated her with kindness. This kind of trauma and abuse is what's at the heart of Derry and ultimately why things keep going wrong. Ingrid started off as like the nicest character in the town who like, when she first showed up in the season, I was like, what a lovely woman, Lilly's got a great friend there. However, just like most things in Derry, she's destroyed things due to selfishness and the rot at the core of her. She's a perfect metaphor for the citizens in the town itself and how if pain and trauma, if left unchecked, leads to more pain and trauma. Her papa then arrives carrying a cleaver. Stan was of course nicknamed Stan the Cleaver, and because of this I did wonder if he was actually a form of the clown. However, he's definitely not, and Pennywise basically House of the Dragon season 1's off the top of his head. He then eats the top half of the skull and Ingrid is like, nice to see you again, Dad. She reveals she set this entire thing up as Pennywise would be drawn to the fear. As we guessed, she was the one who called in the tip, and this has been all part of her endgame. We have been saying this for quite a while. In the diner where she had the balloons on her dress, I was like, I have something off about her, and I want to say theory time, confirmed. Pennywise then asks to see the bow, and she performs it like how she did as a child, complete with the trumpet. Pennywise loves it, but is like, oh well, cheers love, nice to see you. Gonna go sleep for 27 years now. Hope it goes well. This absolutely devastates her, and I did think Pennywise was gonna eat her at one point, but I think it sees her as being a useful tool. While she hugs him, he looks feral though, and clearly is contemplating eating her. However, the fact he stops could actually contain another reason. When Bev sees the deadlights in chapter 1, you can hear the screams inside its mouth. Pennywise talks about how Bob lives inside of him now, and I do wonder if Bob being inside of it almost kind of wrestled control with the creature. This would explain how she survived last week, and as he later says, a bit of her daddy lives on inside him. This is something that's also kind of mentioned in the book, and you know, if you want to look at it that way, I won't be mad at you. Personally, I'm leaning more towards it being a useful tool, but you know, we've got to explore these scenes as much as possible, and there's definitely the read that Bob Gray lives inside and he's like, oh, maybe I won't eat my daughter. I'm getting held back. But yeah, the creature needs to hibernate, and I love how they kept this detail consistent. I did wonder like how they were going to keep it in line with having to hibernate after the Blackspot fire and are still getting an episode after this. However, they do it in a way that I think doesn't really break the rules. Ingrid then puts her foot in it and begs for Pennywise not to leave. It's in this though that she realizes she might have fucked up, might not have thought this one through.
Not a great plan.
Again, Pennywise reveals it ain't her father, and the penny finally drops with Pennywise, eh? It's at this point that he blasts her with the deadlights, and I absolutely love that bass drop.
Real trap shit.
This is of course them reusing the score from the films, and it just instantly sends her into a catatonic state. Her body then begins to levitate, and as we know, they all float. Now, I don't think that this is the end of Kersh, and I do think she'll have a big role in the finale. As she's wheeled out later, we see her eyes move, and I think she'll return fully as one of Pennywise's minions. Pennywise does become her later down the line in a much older form as well, so would it have to know that she would look like this when she's older in order to become her? I don't know, but I do think that she's being kept alive. It's also possible that they're wheeling her off to Juniper Hill, where she'll end up in the same place as Henry and the kid she took to the creature. They found her a bit mental, a bit in a catatonic state, and if they discover her plan and stuff, She'll definitely be going off to the asylum. Now, the effects of the deadlights themselves, it differs from person to person. Bev's husband, Tom, was hit by them at one point in the book and was literally scared to death. Bill's wife, Audra, though, was sent into a catatonic state and only awakened by a magical bike ride with Bill. In chapter 1, Bev of course sees him as well, and it's in this that she sees the future of the Losers Club. So I do wonder if Kersh has also seen things happening in the future, and she might even witness that tea party with Bev thing at the house. But yeah, I think more likely than not, she's just an agent of the clown, and yeah, she'll be back in the finale. I do feel that for sure. If she wants to show her support though, mate, why not do that by picking up one of our t-shirts at the merch store? Step right up, and check out our Deadlights one, which is inspired by the poster of the thing. We have a full range of Welcome to Derry inspired shirts, along with a Stranger Things one as well, and also have Fallout right around the corner, so we're selling lots of shirts for that too. We've got it all, mate, and the more you buy, the more of a discount that you get. If you order now, it'll also be there before Christmas. As long as buy now, I mean now, and not like you're not ordering on like the 22nd of December, mate. Order now. Shabow! Anyway, we cut to the next day and also get a reuse of the music from the films. This is the piece known as The Oath, which is used in both chapter 1 and 2. It first appears when the group swear to kill Pennywise if it ever comes back to life. This is a bond of their friendship in which they'll stick together to conquer evil. So having it used for this scene is extremely important. The fact it's all connected to Coke is also a massive deep cut. In the book, it says that Stan remembers cutting his hand with a broken Coke bottle before they carried out the oath. The entire group then cut their palms with this Coke bottle and swear to come back if the evil returns. So having the Coke here while we hear the oath is an amazing connection, and I love the taste of sweet Coca-Cola available now. Marge witnesses this kind of promise and she sees Rich's body leaning up against the fridge. Just the look on his face as well, mate, it really got to me, and he's just no longer there. Arian Escartaya, he's been great this season, and knowing he's not going to be in the show anymore was just absolutely devastating. There is actually a theory that I think holds a lot of weight involving Marge that we're going to talk about. Drumroll, please. Now, so Marge has massive thick glasses, and this is shared in another character in the Losers Club. That is none other than Rich, and we know from the book that his mum's name's Maggie. After seeing this episode, I did wonder if it would be revealed that Marge is Rich's mother, and she named her son after her first love and the person who died saving her life. I think that would just be a great way to honour the character. And yeah, I remember like back at the start of the season, I was like, why did they got another character called Rich? That's going to get confusing. But if she names it after him, just makes so much sense. And yeah, I'm crying again. Outside, we then see the fire crew coming together and a woman laughing from how broken that she is. Kind of shows the fear and madness that's been spread by Pennywise. And, well, the racist that burned down the Blackspot. This was the worst of humanity, showing the evil aspects that we have. But love will always be there too, and though Marge is devastated, she's seen the best of what humanity can bring as well. Holding Rich's hand for the last time, she puts it under the blanket and then says goodbye. Whew, and I don't think a kid's death has messed me up that much since my girl. The worst thing is, as well, I kind of knew it was coming. In our trailer breakdowns, we've talked about how there's not really much footage of Rich beyond the events that seem to be happening at the Blackspot. And the comments were even posting it on the last video. And it still got me. Now, we did mention before that Will was tortured by Sergeant Wilson, and this character then turned up at the fire while it was still raging and was useless in the face of the crisis. Just like the book though, the fire department then turned up after the blaze had finished. The book also had a fair few survivors, as Will friend's Trevor Dawson punched out the sergeant. He used Wilson's truck to then smash open the doors of the Blackspot to help people to escape. This show though killed off all of Dick and Leroy's mates. And Leroy was shooting some of them as well last week. Or was it the week before? I can't remember. It's all a blur. Leroy and Charlotte then arrive and Will tells them that Dick led them out. Again, this is kind of playing off the book where he did the same thing. The big difference there though is that Will was an adult and he was the soldier. But I like that they kept it that he led Will out. The kids then lead Charlotte to the woods, which is where Hank's hiding out. One thing the official podcast revealed last week as well is that the actor behind him actually auditioned for Mike in It Chapter 2. Steven Ryder revealed that he went up for the part, but they went a different direction. However, he said he bonded with Yeti, who said he wanted to work with him again in the future. So he then cast him as Hank, and it's like that they worked him into Derry in a roundabout way. I think the survivor's guilt, though, is going to be felt heavily by the group, and it's going to be interesting to see where things go. While this is going on, we then see Dick haunted by the spirits of those who died in the blaze. They surround him and haunt him in such a creepy way, in which they want answers and vengeance for what happened. Dick is going to walk with these ghosts forever, and it seems like he's clearly losing it. Dick then reveals that it feels like the creature's gone to sleep, and this emboldens the army to start burning the barriers. They burn it, destroy it, which lets the creature go, and I love how it plays off this whole notion of fire. But it's not really a good plan.
Not a great plan.
Now, as Dick revealed last week, the dead are drawn to where they died. We know that one of the pillars was placed where the war chief died, and thus they just have to follow the spirit. All the burned people constantly surrounding Dick did make me think back to The Shining. There he describes ghosts as being like burnt toast, and the fact they're burned may be a reach, mate, but worth bringing up.
Say like if someone burns toast.
Despite Dick being petrified of the dead last week, he's integral to Shaw getting the pillar. Might speak to his deep down nature of wanting to do good. He could have escaped the Blackspot, but when it came down to it, he decided to go back. He may have been inspired by the war chief, who was a beacon of standing up to the creature. The fact that the eyes also went from white back to normal could symbolically be like the deadlights, when that makes the eyes white and then you gain control yourself and go back to normal. So, standing up to Pennywise. And we did say we were reaching. Mirroring this though, Leroy's still risking his family's life to carry out the mission. He doesn't know what Shaw's up to, but still believes in what the Major's pushing for. He thinks that once it's over, the town will be safe, they'll close the cage in, and they can all finally leave. However, his refusal to step back from Derry has basically held him back throughout the entire show. Firstly, he didn't leave when he found out about the mission, and then he stayed when Will was grabbed under the water, and now he won't leave despite the horrific fire. He's still convinced he's doing the right thing, and as we know, he has no fear. This ultimately clouds his judgment though, and as much as people hate fear, it can be an excellent survival tool. People who have fear will take less risks and put themselves in less danger. The official podcast also brought up the fact that he doesn't have fear, which affects his character in different ways beyond that. All that energy has to be directed into something else, and for Leroy it turns to anger. He hit Will last week and explodes at the end of the episode. Now we then hear the news report, and as we said earlier, everything's just been whitewashed. The fire is blamed on faulty electrics, and the media spins in full effect. It plays upon the town's bigotry and racism, and the white folks just don't really care because it's not happening to them.
Fire Department spokesman Bob McCormick described as an illegal colored speakeasy on the outskirts.
The killers are painted out as the good guys. Stanley even gets eulogized, and he's said to be a beloved local butcher. On the police board is also T. Pasternak. This is the last name that actually features in King's novel From a Buick 8. At the police station, we also see Bauer's name being cleaned from the glass. As he mentioned last week, the mayor let him go, and this is what made him go towards telling those at the Falcon about the tip. Hank's case is then closed, and the police believe his body was found. They obviously, didn't have DNA back then, and are happy to just sweep the crimes under the rug as per usual. This often comes at the end of a cycle, and the police often just pin the crimes on someone to avoid doing extra work. The killings then stopped, and it's basically like, well, look, we caught the guy, the killings stopped, it's all over. This is why Henry was sent to Juniper Hill in the first place, because he was blamed for all the kids' disappearances. Also, love how the radio broadcast ends with a very chilling laugh.
Like you. Now here's Frank with the weather.
We then cut to the children of Maturin. We learn that 23 people died at the Blackspot and that 17 kids died during the cycle. This is actually a lower body count than in the book, as there 66 people died in the fire. Rose also once more refers to the cycle as the augury. This is an ancient religious practice of observing birds. Pennywise first appeared as a bird in the book, and again with the ties to the Blackspot, I did find it fitting that the cycle in the book ended with it appearing as one as well. Although many people died, Rose says that they must focus on the ones they saved by keeping it in its cage. The poor kids are just seen as collateral damage so that it can stay in prison. It's a reverse of what Shaw wants at the end, as he's willing to unleash it on America to keep people compliant. The rationale is that despite the deaths, there's always peace afterwards, which is something the pair both share. So while the tribe accept the sacrifices for the greater good, Shaw wants to use the fear as a way to unite the country, which is very Watchmen. In 1962, America was of course a hotbed of change, and they had the Vietnam War, protests around that, the civil rights movement, feminist movement, free love stuff, and basically there were constant changes. I believe that Shaw thinks that America's on the brink of collapse and that there'll be a civil war if people aren't terrified. And to be honest, this is kind of a universal message because every single decade people say this stuff's it's about to be civil war, it's going to be civil war over this stuff, and yeah, never really ends up happening. If it does happen, mate, I kind of hope like they decide the winner on like Call of Duty or something, you know, have a Call of Duty match, decide it there, spare the bloodshed. I've got a better plan than Shaw. The actions carried out by the government, though, during that time often undermined the perceived freedoms of the US. Lots of people were treated like second-class citizens, and protesters were put down ruthlessly. The debate around freedom of speech, especially in the UK at the moment, it's something that's very, very high right now. And yeah, there's just a universal message here that's kind of about the government trying to quell disobedience. But how are we going to stop people? We can't just throw everyone in jail? Well, the plan is we're going to unleash Pennywise on the country.
Not a great plan.
Back at the Hanlons, Charlotte's trying to get Hank out of town through using Leroy's uniform. It also plays on the town's bigotry and how they just view black people as being all the same.
This town is the monster. You're not going anywhere.
Will is then forced to stay home. It's funny how he actually does what he's told this time and is attacked because of it. Due to this, Marge and Ronnie then arrive at Lilly's to give her the bad news about Rich. We can see the dagger and that she's gripping it very tightly. She refused to let them touch it last week and has clearly had all her trust destroyed. The friends' lack of unity has led to Rich's death, and had they all stuck together, the dagger could have warded off Pennywise. Sure, the racists still would have attacked, but they might have been able to make it out together. Kinda reflects the Losers Club scene after 29 Nearbolt Street, and there they argued and basically split up, and then Bev was grabbed by the creature. Lilly looks in a very bad way though, and clearly everything that's happened has taken a massive toll on her. At the standpipe, they then pack up Rich's things, including his Native American toys and soldiers. This is actually a really good touch, and the Native Americans and soldiers are currently two of the warring factions in the show. His Lone Ranger toys also put in his box, and Marge looks at his plane. This unfortunately never made it all the way to Main Street, and sadly the character was brought down early as well. The Lone Ranger also had a horse called Silver, and Bill named his bike after this. We even hear Bill shouting "Hi yo Silver" at the library in chapter 1. Which is very, very fitting and sad, and I'm never getting over it. Back at the dig, the soldiers then locate the burial location, complete with the turtle shell that we saw in episode 4. This is another nod to maturing and the continual turtle theme in the show. I got a lot of vibes from Indiana Jones from the music, and I love how it fits unearthing this ancient artifact. Leroy's then told to stand down, just like how Dick was. Like Kersh, he starts to realise that maybe he's made a mistake here. The excuse that it's asleep is then used so the army can experiment on the pillar. However, there's actually a secret plan. Shaw's kept him in the dark since the start, and there's no difference here. Tanya also watches over them, and he runs to Rose to tell her what's happening. Also at Rose's house are Charlotte and Hank, who arrived there to try and get him across the Canadian border. As you mentioned a while back, Rose's tribe have a family in the Great White North, which is why Charlotte's seeking her help. It's sort of playing off the Underground Railroad and moving people towards salvation. Now, the trailer gives away how it's being done, which is something we'll talk about in the spoiler section. The pillar is then taken to an incinerator, and this is something we theorized was something from the Kitchener Ironworks. The Indiana Jones vibes continue with the box, and it gets wheeled in like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. They then go to burn it, and basically want to leave the cage door open so the monster's free to roam.
Not a great plan.
Yeah, it's a wildly stupid plan, and thankfully Leroy arrives, but even he can't stop Shaw. I find Shaw's plan grimly ironic though. He wants everyone to abide by the law with no personal thoughts or opinions. This is just like what the US criticized the USSR for doing with communism. Shaw justifies the kids' deaths as collateral damage, and they then destroy the pillar. Don't know how it's gonna go, but obviously we know they do contain the creature, and Pennywise doesn't end up strolling around the US. However, we did see in chapter 2 as Bev runs down the stairs to leave Tom that there is a picture of them, and there's a shape of Pennywise in the top corner. So maybe he gets out and just goes mental. But I doubt it. Leroy in the end is detained though, and we then cut to see Pennywise. This moment is very, very, very clearly paying homage to Apocalypse Now. And its apocalypse is here. It-pocalypse Now. That film was about the insanity of war though, and how the structures of power often end up becoming the thing that they fight against. In that we watch a character descend into the heart of darkness in order to assassinate someone who's turned against what the army deems acceptable. The film even has the line,
"Horror
And there are theories that the entire thing is just a descent into madness with a character in hell who's stuck in a time loop. Elements of the end flash up at the beginning, and we've done a full breakdown of the movie discussing all of that and all the hidden meaning behind it, and you'll enjoy that video if you watch it. Now, though the hibernation should be in full effect at this point, the creature cannot miss this opportunity to roam free. Thus, it goes and abducts Will. Calling and pretending to be Ronnie, it also uses her voice to taunt Bev in the pipes in chapter 1. Talks about how Rich's lungs burst like popcorn, which felt like a nod to what it says to Georgie about popcorn.
The way he must have suffocated. Lungs bursting like popcorn.
Because they pop.
This entire scene is very similar to when the creature grabbed Bev before then taking her to the sewers. So I'm guessing that's where it's going. It appears on the fridge and then jumps down before blasting Will with the deadlights. Don't know why Pennywise doesn't just spam this attack whenever a kid's running, but it has him ensnared, and that's how we end the episode. Over the credits, we hear the song Trouble's Back in Town by the Wilburn Brothers, and you get that, mate. You get that Easter egg, mate. Give yourself a pat on the back. Congratulations. Trouble is back in town, and that wraps up the video, and I want to discuss some of the things I think could be happening next time. We will, of course, be breaking down the episode trailer in full on the channel very, very soon, so make sure you subscribe. But there are a couple of shots that haven't been shown yet that I think are very interesting, and I want to talk about them in this video. If you don't want to know, thank you for watching, and as always, hopefully I'll see you on the next one, and you enjoy the rest of the week. It's been a good one, it's been a depressing one. More It content coming soon. With Lilly looking like she's losing grip this episode, and next week is going to be horrifying, the Red Band trailer may have given us a clue at what exactly is next for her. Shoutouts to pun on Reddit for this amazing theory. The user talks about how lots of people have theorized that Lilly is Bev's mother and she ends up marrying Alvin Marsh. Marsh was actually a janitor at the hospital, and this could have been how the pair met. His name was also mentioned earlier in the season. I can't remember what episode it was. They had something scrawled in graffiti saying Alvin Marsh. I'll not make my editors look it up, but we did point it out in the breakdown. Either way, in the Red Band trailer, we can see a woman who's hanged herself. Because of YouTube censorship, you know, we have had to censor this, but if you want to see it in the Red Band trailer, that's where you need to go. Now, what we can see is that this doesn't look like it's taking place in the 60s, as the police uniforms look like the ones we see in Chapter 1 and 2. The room is also a lot different to the ones that we've seen in Juniper Hill. There's also a man kneeling over and a girl with long red hair comforting him. This looks a lot like how Bev appeared at the start of Chapter 1, and the uniform here looks exactly like Marsh's. So I do wonder if Lilly is in fact Bev's mother, and that's the reason why she wasn't in those films. In the book, she's called Elfrida and is part of the family, but they may have changed that, and Lilly might be her mother. Bev and Lilly have been shown in lots of similar ways that we've pointed out throughout most of our breakdowns. The main ones are them both being in cubicles though, being tricked by Mrs. Kersh, hearing voices from the sewers. It all lines up. And I'm gonna be honest, mate, we are killing it with the theory times, and I think this might be our best record across the series when it comes to getting shit right. But I said the Blue Lagoon instead of Black Lagoon, and I got the pillars wrong, so we're discounting all of it. I fucked up. Now, we also have the escape attempt with Hank. In episode 6, around the 12-minute 20 mark, we watched as an ice cream van was driving through the shot. This seems to be something that appeared in the mid-season trailer, and it looks like what the heroes were driving. I do feel like this is what they'll use to smuggle out Hank, but I don't know how well it's gonna go. Again, if we keep with the canon of the books and the movies themselves, then Ronnie was one of Pennywise's victims, and thus I think things are gonna go bad. The trailers have also shown a fog that's been overwhelming Derry. Shaw said that fear is like a fog at the end of the episode, and we're heading into brand new territory now. The school is also attacked with the doors barred, just like the Blackspot. It's something that reminds me a lot of King's first novel Carrie and that iconic prom scene. And that's actually a book I'm currently rereading, maybe a breakdown soon, eh? The fog that overwhelms Derry is also very similar to another King story, The Mist. So I do wonder if there's going to be a sort of Castle Rock TV show style ending. I have also seen some speculate that Shaw's operations here may turn into the shop. This is a secret government organisation mentioned in Firestarter, The Mist, and also Tommyknockers. Now, as I said, we are in uncharted waters, but one line it said in the book has given me an idea. In the text, it says, "I am the eater of worlds," which is something Bill scoffs at. Its appetite does have a limit, as it of course goes to sleep for 27 years. However, with the pillar now gone, it is possible that it takes over the world. Perhaps this is what it meant, and it's eaten worlds before. The trailer also shows kids floating above the ground, and it might even like trap most of the town in its deadlights. This could show the true horror of the creature, and then the natives may have to perform the ritual of Chud in order to contain it. From what Mike says in chapter 2 though, we know this goes badly and a lot of the tribe die. However, this might be enough to hold the creature back, and they could take the dagger and put that at the missing pillar spot. The dagger came from Rose's safe, so it wasn't part of the setup, and yet maybe just swap them over. Anyway, that wraps up the episode, and huge thank you for sitting through another breakdown. I don't think it's any surprise that I absolutely loved this episode, and I think that they just knocked it out the park. Just an incredible entry, and though the show's been great so far, this just kind of took it to the next level. It's got me so hyped for next time, but I'm actually also really sad that we're potentially going to be saying goodbye to these characters next week. The 27-year thing is going to mean we probably won't see them again. You might as well watch the finale breakdown we do though, and hopefully I'll see you there. In the meantime though, I'd of course love to hear your thoughts on the entry and what you think will happen in the finale. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos? If you click the join button, you get at least one breakdown a week before anyone else, and it all goes towards helping videos like this get made. Huge thank you to everyone who supports us at that level. I really appreciate it. I hope it's worth it as well. I know a lot of you guys say this is the best membership we've ever had. I swear that's what they say. So thank you so much for all you guys who do it. If not though, the thumbs up is enough, and I'll see you on the next one. If you want something else to watch, we've also got a breakdown on screen right now, so yeah, go check that out and keep listening to my voice and seeing my face. With that out of the way though, thank you for watching this one. I've been your host Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.